This September 12th, SON Estrella Galicia are back in London with their micro festival at Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage. With live music, beer culture, street food and workshops, SON Estrella Galicia is the musical arm of the family-owned independent Estrella Galicia beer brand, which has been creating unforgettable music experiences since 2009. The September the 12th event will be headlined by Coach Party with support from the New Eves, as well as yet-to-be-announced DJ sets and local music selectors. There'll be a clothing repair workshop to customise your repaired clothes, a local food vendor serving 0 kilometre food with veggie and vegan options, a Soundcrafters interactive workshop, and a beer pouring workshop. Alongside the London event, there'll be a series of new micro-festivals in Madrid, A Coruña, Barcelona later in 2024, and Berlin and Granada in 2025, reflecting a truly global approach from SON Estrella Galicia. So if you're in London, September the 12th, swing by Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage for SON Estrella Galicia. Tickets are available now via Dice. As an independent music podcast, 101 Part-Time Jobs highly recommends DistroKid as the best solution to putting out your own music online. You can join 1 million other artists from all across the world putting out their own music on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else across the DSPs where people are listening to your music. My dream as a kid was to run a small little label, and now with DistroKid, getting music out online is the easiest it ever has been, making 100% of your own royalties while paying a small annual fee. And that fee's even smaller as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get 30% off your first year putting out your own music on DistroKid. Getting your own music out into the world has never been easier. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get the best deal you can. Hey, all right, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. I'm Giles Bidder, and this is where we hear from bands and artists about what it means to be an artist today. We're in the streaming era, which means that people don't get paid as much as they used to. Time is money. We live in a world where everyone's streaming. People are cancelling tours. It's a difficult time to be an artist, and 101 Part-Time Jobs goes into the day-to-day as well as the meaning behind people making records. On today's episode, we have That Woman, Josephine Vander releasing her debut solo album. You might know Josephine Vander from being in the wonderful pop duo Oh Wonder. Well, before Oh Wonder started, she was doing a solo thing that she kind of put on ice when Oh Wonder kicked off. And That Woman is her bringing back her solo career. Her album Find Joy is out now. It came out last week. And it's wonderful. It's all over the place sonically with a lot of grooves, some jazz, some R&B, just absolute melodies all over the place. And it was a pleasure to go down to her studio, High Water Studios, that she runs with her partner Anthony, and sit down and talk about where her life's gone through the thread of music. A warning that this episode contains some themes that you might find uncomfortable if you've been a victim of abuse or if you've been spiked. So please, if these kinds of themes make you feel uncomfortable, it might not be an appropriate listen for you. Okay, this is 101 Part-Time Jobs with That Woman, Josephine Vander. If you enjoy it, make sure you click subscribe. We put out 2 episodes every week, and we'd love to have you along. 101 Part-Time Jobs. I loved what you say about coming into this place, which is your studio.
Yes.
And coming in and making something at the end of the day that wasn't there when you started the day.
Yeah.
That's a good way to live.
it's the thing that gives me the most joy. It's the thing that nourishes me. I think it's my way of navigating the world. It's just like building stuff, making stuff, creating stuff, and not judging it. It just is.
Yeah.
It's it's the best feeling ever.
It must be must be a bit of a journey to realize that you can make something, and you don't know at the end of the day if it's the song that's going to be on the record or if it's never going to come out. But just the fact that you made it, that's the important part.
I literally get I'm very hyper emotional at the moment, and just even talking about like the privilege of making music makes me like flood with tears. And it can, like we've been working a lot with other artists and stuff, and at the end of every day I'm like, that was just a true honour to be able to make something. Now's a good time for collaboration, it seems. I think maybe like 10, 15 years ago, people would collaborate, but they wouldn't be so open about it. Whereas now it's like, we made that, every song on an 18-track album could be made with different players, different engineers, different producers. Now we kind of celebrate that more. Totally, and embracing sort of variety and the kind of broad scope. I feel like music and genres are just bending and blurring. So it just feels like so holistic and beautiful to kind of bring in a bit of everything into your art.
Thank you, Gen Z.
Yeah. What is genre?
Well, exactly. I think we're a similar age, and it was so tribal at school. You're a goth, or you're a chav, or you're...
That's the thing, though. Where are these like kids now getting their identity? What are they dressing up as?
I have no idea. But I've got a friend who's got a younger sibling. Yeah. And he went to a party of theirs, or a few of their younger siblings' friends came to their party, and they said they couldn't, by the look of them, he couldn't tell what kind of music they're into.
Whoa.
And that's cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's weird though, because for us, I'm like, I know what bands you listen to, like when you're a kid.
You're wearing skate shoes.
Oh, mate, I had the MySpace fringe. Yes. I had like the low jeans and the belt, and like, what other stuff did we have? I was a proper emo.
If you had a studded belt.
Studded belt. Yeah. I had a sweatband I bought in Camden that said 69 on it when I was 13. And I didn't know what it meant, but I was like, this is cool. And my mum was like, what the hell is that, you idiot? Take that off. I was like, no, it's my 69 sweatband, mum.
It's funny how, like, it seems like there was a lot more rogue items back then. I had a Nirvana t-shirt that on the back in massive letters that read, "I just want to die." Oh. I was like, Mum, let me wear that around the village.
I just want to die.
Yeah. Oh. But you got into music quite young then, because, I mean, let's go back before I Wonder, you had a solo career, and you were sleeping on floors, you were writing and doing everything you can.
Yes.
I don't know much about that time of your life because it hasn't been written about so much.
No.
But when you think back to those days, I mean, does it go back as far as 16, 17, end of school?
I started writing songs when I was 13 and going to gigs. Was from London, so like used to go to the Astoria, like bunk off school, be like first in the queue for like Motion City soundtrack at the Astoria. Like loved it. The guy signed my hand one time, and I was like, I'm never washing this. It was that.
We are immediately friends.
Okay, excellent.
Motion City soundtrack.
Hold Me Down. It's like one of my favourite songs of all time.
It's great. And the thing about that band is, yes, they were pop punk, but they were a bit more out there. They were weird, but it was also like intelligent songwriting. The lyrics were great.
Yeah.
The lyrics were really great.
Yeah. Loved so many good bands. Who did I love? Like Brand New, Bright Eyes. Anyway.
Good songwriter bands.
Really good songwriter bands.
So if you start writing songs and you're listening to those
Death
records.
Cab, Ben Gibbard is like, I think, one of the best songwriters of our time.
Have you ever met him?
No, and I wouldn't want to. They say don't meet your heroes, and him and Leslie Feist, the singer, I just don't want to meet them. Don't want to meet them.
In a way, it feels like we already have enough of them.
Yeah, they mean so much to me. Like I met my my musical hero when I was like 19, and I was so overcome I burst into tears and could say nothing. And I'm so pleased I had that experience, because it's happened a few times where people have met us, like when we're touring and stuff, and they burst into tears. And if I knew what that felt like, I'd be like, "Are you all right, mate?" I'm only. But when music means so much to people, and they just see like it distilled in one person, it's not about the person; it's about all those experiences they've had listening, and it's just like there in front of them, tangible. It's amazing. Anyway,
you have that shared relationship. You're the person who made the music, and they're the person who's made your music mean something to them.
Yes.
That's a great thing as fans, is that we let things mean things to us. Like we actually, life can be quite meaningless.
Yeah.
If you want it, but you have to make meaning in life. I think that's one of the big things that music gives me.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway.
I totally agree with you. But yeah, so as a kid, you went to loads of gigs, and I started listening to people like, my dad showed me Joni Mitchell, the classic, and like Simon Garfunkel and James Taylor and Cat Stevens and Labby Zifri and all these like great songwriters. And then I found Vanessa Carlton and Norah Jones and sort of all these women playing piano, Alicia Keys, and I was like, wow, women can play piano and write songs too. Like, this is cool. And I bought all their sheet music and learned all their albums like 14, 15. And then I was like, maybe I'll write my own song. And then started writing songs. And then from 17, as soon as I passed my driving test, I took 5 driving tests in 3 months in a desperate bid to just have freedom, be able to go and play a gig. And I kept failing them. And I was like, why, universe, do you not want me to tour?
Do you remember those days? And do you remember what you failed on?
Mate, so one time I failed just pulling out of the test centre because I didn't do the classic check your blind spot. And I could see I started pulling forward, and the instructor had to put his foot on the brake because a person was walking in front of me, and I nearly killed a person. I was like, well, I've just failed now, so I guess I'll just speed round. One time I failed because my eyesight, I couldn't read the number plate. It's really bad.
That's a bummer way to fail it.
Yeah, really annoying.
Did you need glasses?
Yeah, clearly.
But you hadn't. It wasn't just a bad day.
Yeah. One time I failed because I did a parallel park and thought, no, I'll do this better, and just did the same move. And he was like, if you hadn't tried to correct it, you'd have passed. Idiot. Anyway.
Yeah. I think you get lucky with tests.
Do you think?
I passed my
Great
second
system.
test. And
based on luck.
And I think it's the person as well, or just like how bored or tired the instructor, the test instructor is.
Yeah.
Because for my one, the one I passed, like he just told me which exit to take, where usually they're supposed to say go direction Nuneaton or wherever.
Oh God.
And
really?
and he just told me where to go. I needed that help. I probably wouldn't have failed. I probably wouldn't have passed if he hadn't have helped me.
Third exit, and you're like 1, 2, 3.
But you got your driving license because you wanted to play music. You wanted to get around.
That was it. I just wanted to put my keyboard in the back of a car. So I got this like beat up Ford Fiesta. I bought a keyboard, for which I'd saved up money from my first job, which was a random job, but and just basically said yes to any gig that would have me. And so week 1 of passing my test, I drove to Glasgow on my own because I was like, why not?
With a gig booked?
Yeah, gig booked, 30 quid petrol money, which turns out isn't enough to get to Scotland and back. Also, that's insane driving. And I went to like Switzerland. I just drove myself to Switzerland one time to play in this like crazy like it was like a weird like beer hall in the Alps or something, and they paid me €100, and I was like, I am so rich, this is amazing. And then I obviously had to stay in like a hostel and lost money, but
alone.
It was great. Yeah,
and doing that with friends sounds awesome. Doing it alone, you like could be a bit riskier.
Yeah, I
you
didn't really think about it at that time. And none of my friends were like I went to an all girls school, so like back then like no one played music, which is actually really sad. It was it was a boys club. You didn't have girl bands and stuff. So yeah, it was just me and my car and my keyboard.
Do you remember what your friends from school said when you were playing music?
They like, I had a couple friends who were into like bands, so they were always really supportive and understood and would come to all my gigs. But most of my friends were like, oh God, they just weren't gig people or music people. They didn't understand it.
Why do you think that is?
I think, why do I think that is? I think back then, like, we didn't have many female artists, actually. So if you look at the representation of women in music, we're talking about like 2007, when I was kind of 17, 18 at sixth form. If I think about all the bands I love, they're all guys. And if I think about the culture of touring at that point, which obviously I then made loads of band friends, like up and down the UK, and they're all boy bands. And being a girl, you would generally be a solo artist, and there weren't that many of us. There were a lot of people on MySpace, you know, writing songs and playing the guitar and piano. But to get out and tour, I don't know why. I guess representation and not seeing yourself in someone, so not going, oh, I can do that, which is the key to everything. Yeah,
totally. I mean, I see it with myself. Like Jackass is kind of a great example.
Yeah,
because like if you skateboard and you're a guy, that's like you have someone you can be. Yeah. Whereas if you don't have something that's immediately like, oh, I could fit into that.
Yeah.
And that's the beginning. That's the seed, right? That's the kernel of an idea, and then you go off and do your own thing. But totally. Yeah, it seems like representation.
Yeah, I think that would have been the main thing, and I don't know why I was instilled with this sort of strange confidence, or maybe it's just like blissful naivety of like, well, I'll just go and do it then.
Yeah, good on you.
But I was always like the only girl in like the crew of guys, you know, on the touring scene.
Were you booking these shows on MySpace?
Yeah, I guess I was. I was booking these shows on MySpace. I don't even remember. I guess
that was how we spoke. That was how we communicated.
Yeah, but bulletins.
Bulletins. I was just thinking that. Yeah. And like you talk about like having like an odd job when you're a kid. Everyone has odd jobs when they were kids. What were you doing?
So
what was
my first job, I other than music, was actually like such a fluke job, and then I went on to have loads of like normal jobs, like worked in pubs, worked in shops for like full time for like years. Wow. But my first job was I was the face of BBC Three when I was 18, which was completely like, I look back at that opportunity now and I'm like, thank God, because that's how I bought my first keyboard, because they found me on MySpace and they were like this like talent scout, and they were like, oh, we're relaunching BBC Three and we want an in-vision presenter. So like rather than the voiceover, they want like someone to pop up and be like, hi, welcome to BBC Three. Were you about to watch Mighty Boosh or whatever? And somehow I got the gig. And looking back, it was pretty weird. Like I had this like fake accent. I was like, hello, me old mates. And well, I don't know why I did that.
They asked you to put it on.
No, I just thought that would be good. So I had this weird like fake Cockney accent. And then I just used to tell terrible jokes that my dad helped me write. And somehow I lasted for 6 months. But every other Friday, I'd just leave school and go up to the BBC Centre.
What were you like on screen? Because if you don't have like media training as a kid, or you don't go to a kind of type of school or college for that, you went into it raw, dry.
Yeah, I guess I was always like quite a confident kid, and like I enjoy public speaking. I don't mind chatting. So, and they were like, cool, we'll just get her in, and that's what I did. So and it paid like insanely well. I got £300 every time I went. Every other Friday, which is like an insane amount of money. So I ended up with like a few grand, and that is what I then bought my first keyboard, like a stand, an amp, my car, and then I was set, and I was like, I can now go and play gigs.
That's a great setup, because everyone who plays music knows how expensive it is.
Oh, it's insanely expensive, let alone getting into recording. Like that's so prohibitive.
And so many people don't have that opportunity. You know, you could have the best player who plays like Larby Sifra or has a great songwriting ability, but you can't afford to go to a studio.
No way.
Without £5,000, £10,000.
You need that upfront cost, and I was really lucky. It was such a lucky break to get that and be able to then like, you know, make your own EPs. And I used to press my CDs, and then you can then sell them, but you just need that upfront injection.
And even once you've got that money, you still might be able to do it, but then that's almost like the start of the journey. Then you need people to listen to it, people to care. It's
you're taking a big punt on yourself. I look back and like no one else was taking the punt for me. Like my parents were always like, what are you doing? I think you should be going to university. And they ended up forcing me to go to university, which I did, where I was allowed to take a gap year. And they were like, if you don't make it, quote unquote, make it in music by the end of the year, you have to go to uni.
What was the definition of making it?
Well, that's I think a slippery thing. I guess like I could afford to move out and like sustain myself, and so I worked full time in Accessorise in Bluewater and HMV in Oxford Street.
Wow.
I worked like 6 days a week, just saving up the cash.
Heavy retail.
Mate, freaking love retail. Retail is my jam. I was cheap as sunglasses. Wow. Absolutely smashed it.
All right.
Oh,
You're rare.
I love retail. I would work on a till and be as happy as I am now. I'm genuinely serious. I love it.
Having those conversations.
It's the same thing as putting on a gig. Like, I know that sounds insane, but like we've got a coffee shop and I go and do a shift there like quite often because it brings me as much joy as being in the studio. Because you're like creating an environment to host people in, make them feel good. You're doing some sort of service. And it's so lovely. I just love it.
I think the thing that people struggle with retail is that you're always making money for someone else.
I mean, yeah, and I was getting paid like £5. I worked in rough trade, and then I'd spend it all on records.
Yeah, of course.
Idiot.
Same with the pub. You stay after a shift. Mate, you spend 50 quid on beers.
To be fair, worked in a pub and spent all my money on lunch.
Good lunch.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot, and this is before I Wonder. This is when I was 18 to 19. I just worked consistently trying to get money because
one of my friends had given me this opportunity to go to South by Southwest and play in his band. And I was like, yes. And I look back at that, and actually I had to pay for my own flight, which was like, I remember it was like to Texas, and it was like 450 quid. So that's what I was working to save up for.
It's probably now like 700.
Yeah, a lot of money. So like when you're earning £3.50 an hour, that takes a long time. But I saved it up, and I flew to South by Southwest and played. But then I forgot I was 18, so you can't get into any of the venues.
Yes.
Because you've got to be 21.
So it's not even like you can't hang out and go drinking. You can't get into the venues.
They make you stand outside. So actually I worked for a year to fly to Texas to stand outside venues, and then flew home again. It was great.
Did you play the gig?
Yeah, I was allowed to play the gigs. So I did, that was my gap year though. That was my whole gap year. And I loved it.
Yeah, that you stayed positive.
Oh, I absolutely loved, because I was doing music. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
But I didn't make it, sadly, in that year.
Good on you.
Had to go to uni.
I feel like you can't really fail if you have that kind of mindset.
No, I never see anything I've done as a failure. Like, that's a big part of how I approach life. Like, everything's a learning, and nothing is a failure. Like, you can't fail if you're living and enjoying yourself. Like, it's not failing. Whereas I see like a lot of pals like resign themselves and go, oh well, it's not worked. I was like, nope, this is just a step in the long-term goal. I always knew that I would end up making music somehow. Just knew. I know that sounds mad, but yeah.
No, I mean, it makes sense, even in the sort of most pragmatic mathematical sense of thinking. If you just don't let yourself do anything else,
yes,
then you have to do it.
Yes, I'm a big believer in that as well. And actually, when I graduated uni, I got a job in Waterstones, again on the till. It's my dream. I freaking love it. And books. I was like, my two favorite things.
Yeah.
And Anthony from I Wonder, he was my husband. He was a friend at the time, and we were writing lots of songs. And he was like, "Why have you got a job? What are you doing? You're just going to end up going to Waterstones every day, like you did going to Accessorize and HMV every day, and you won't be making music." But I was like, "But I need to earn money. Like, I need to live." He's like, "Just give it like 3 months. You've got some savings from other stuff you've done and gigs you've played. Just give it 3 months. Give it a go. Just call up and quit." And I was like, "Okay." And I called up and I was like, "Thank you so much for the job, but I won't be coming in for my first shift." And that was the start of I Wonder. Which was, again, like, it's like this blind naivety that it would just work out. I think I'm deluded.
Do you think, I think a lot of us, I have this, maybe not as much as people around me, but when you don't have a job, like a normal job, you get that sort of acute like fear.
Well, it's panic, sheer panic. Yeah, totally.
Did you have that?
Yeah, the whole time. But I always thought that like that feeling for me is such a driving force. I'm like driven by fear into action. And I guess, and then I reflected back on my gap year and I was like, actually, I spent most of my time working in a shop, which I loved, but I wasn't making music because it's such a the arts, man, they're just woefully underfunded and undervalued, and I just think they add so much meaning, as we were saying, to like all like the makers but also the listeners. It's so important that space is given, and it's so hard. You just
What do you think could change? I mean, there are these independent venue week and music venue trust. There are these kinds of pockets of, I guess it comes down to money, so it's like funding, right? But I feel like there's something more, I say we, but in the grander we, like could do for like schooling and education, even the way we talk to each other. I think a lot of people start bands when they're teenagers at school and they're surrounded by people being like, "You're an idiot," or "What are you doing that for?" Or "You'll never make it." But that's kind of all irrelevant.
Making it's not the important bit about playing music or doing any sort of art, and also what does making it mean, especially now in today's climate. Like that's a funny phrase. What is success? I have no idea. That's been redefined, but totally like the narrative around, I mean, just arts generally in schools, it's dissipating, isn't it? And I don't know. There's so many great initiatives I've heard of, like pals setting up, working with kids, working in communities, and kind of sort of doing workshops and stuff with people. But it's all on the individual who's doing these things. We just need more arts and funding in schools, I think.
It should be less charitable.
Yes.
Right? And more like in the system.
I think so. totally. And I think everyone would be just way happier. It's not about necessarily breeding like successful artists. It's just like, it's so important.
So when you focused on playing music, you know, when you left that Waterstones job, looking back now, do you think there was a shift in your brain where you prioritize music and you're like, okay, this is right now, this is going to become more valuable than regular quote unquote work?
Yeah, definitely. So I would have been 23 at this point. So since I was 17, there would have been 6 years of taking it seriously, insofar as like I played thousands of gigs in that time, probably like did definitely tens of thousands of miles, just driving anywhere, playing to like 4 people. I'd do anything and just say yes. So there was definitely like a sense that music was important, but I never guess I took it seriously. I always kind of knew I'd end up doing something else, because that was kind of like the narrative that's instilled in you, like you're never going to make it. Have fun doing it. It's a nice hobby, but like don't take yourself too seriously.
Like
you need a backup plan.
If you're like, I'm going to be a musician, it almost like puts you off the... It's scary to think of it being serious. It's scary to take yourself seriously. Which is sad. Yeah. That's sad that we grew up that way.
Yeah. And it is really sad. It's being taken seriously by your peers and your parents or your caregivers and your school. Like my school, I remember like the head teacher, when I was like, oh, I need every Friday off to go and do this job, and she'd be like, oh, going to do your TV thing, are you? And it was just like, this is really cool. Yes, this is sick.
If I was your boss, I'd be like, go on, Josephine,
you've got this.
Go on, gal.
Like, that's such a cool opportunity. How can we support you in this? Like, and it was always kind of met with derision, or just like a side eye. And it was, I guess, that quitting the Waterstones was me finally getting to a point, age 23, where I went, you know what, I'm in charge of my life and my destiny. I'm going to seize this and take myself seriously. And actually that's all it needs, really, is a bit of self-belief in spite of everyone around you going, well, you're never going to make it, which people told me repeatedly. People from the music industry. One guy I remember like came up to me and was like, look, don't mean to be rude, but you're never going to be a star, are you? So just give up, sort of thing. And I was like, you can't say that to someone, because you never know. Like, I don't know. So that just again like fueled my fire to prove everybody wrong, I guess. Without
sort of asking the question too on the nose, do you think that was because you're a woman?
Yeah, probably.
Part of it.
Do you know what? Probably, if I look back at it, and actually, if I really think back, like there were a couple times I remember, like I played a great festival in Hitchin, which I now can't remember the name of, and I would have rocked up age 18 in jeans and I had my I Love NY t-shirt. It was what everybody was wearing, I don't know why, and a cardigan, I remember, and I just set up my keyboard and a stand, and that I'd do like a 2-minute sound check, because I was just like ready to roll. Did my festival, came off, and this guy ran over to me, said, oh, it was a great set, like your songs are good, but you really need to think about what you're wearing. I just remember that like so vividly, and I was like really taken aback. I went, oh, okay, I will. And I reflect, you would never say that to a guy in jeans and a t-shirt, but I guess I needed to make more of an effort. I don't really know what the comment meant.
It's a great part of the record, Find Joy.
Oh, yeah. Which
is excellent. And where you basically say, fuck off.
Yeah.
And there's a good 10-second gap before it comes back in.
Yeah. That's actually that's a horrendous story. That was... when we can talk about it. So I was 23. So kind of at the start of this sort of journey of like, I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to smash it. And it just goes to show like how many predators there are lurking in the shadows all the time, ready to kind of puncture your belief in yourself, or maybe are threatened by somebody that's like, I've got this. I don't know. Anyway, and it was actually a guy who works still in the music industry. He basically had like 2 free tickets to go to see a secret Rihanna show, and I was obviously the biggest Rihanna fan ever, and I was like, I want to go. So it was a friend of a friend sort of thing, and the friend was like, oh, my friend, would love to go see Rihanna, she'd take the tickets. And I remember going, and I watched the gig, and I had a beer. And actually, in a funny turn of events, this was the night before my Waterstones shift, which I then cancelled. So I was living at home, and I was like, my mum was like, my shift starts at 10, so and I called her in the toilets at like 11 o'clock, and I was like, I've got my shift starting tomorrow, so I'm gonna get the last train home, and I'll be home in like before midnight and ready to start my shift. She was like, great. And the last thing I remember was being behind the bar and saying to this guy, like, you really need to help me, I don't feel well. I just have vivid memory of that. And him just being like, oh, I don't know what you mean. And obviously now we have Ask for Angela and all these sort of amazing systems in place. But he obviously didn't know what to do with me. And I remember like the world spinning. And the next thing I know, I wake up and I'm in this random house in someone's bed. And I look at my phone and it's midday the next day. And the gap for that 12-hour gap is just a blur. And I'd obviously been spiked, and then he'd taken me back to his place. It's absolutely horrific. But obviously my mum is then like, she's called Waterstones in Bluewater being like, has Josie turned up to her shift? And they're like, no. And it turned, and that was, and she thought I'd gone. And then the maddest thing about the story is that I then woke up and went, oh God, I'm so sorry. And it's the classic, like, you just think like, oh, I've done something wrong here, and I'd wet myself, and it was just like horrible. And then I was like, oh God, I'm sorry, I've pissed all over your sheets. And I was like putting them in the washing machine, and like my contact lens had fallen out, and I was like, I need to get to Waterstones. And it's only kind of years later I look back at that and go like, whoa, like I just was out of body, didn't know what had happened. So that happened actually the night before, and then obviously Waterstones, and I was like, I'm coming in for my shift tomorrow. And then I met Anthony. He was like, no, you're not doing any of this, you're just making music now, this is it. So that was kind of all tied together in some sort of strange way, which I've never actually connected the dots. I've made this album like, what would it be, like 10 years after all these sort of very formative experiences in the industry and starting making music. And then obviously with Oh Wonder, the beautiful thing that happened, I never got the chance to kind of process them through music, which is how I process the world and myself. And so it's why a lot of these sort of stories on the album come from experiences that happened when I was younger and trying to work out who I was. It's the album I kind of always needed to make and just have never had the space to do. So that's the story behind that.
Yeah, I mean, you tell that story now, and you laugh in that way that you have to laugh, or
because what else can you do? Yeah,
but you got spiked.
Yeah, I escaped lightly, like I think in the grand scheme of things. But the fact that this person's still working in the music industry, and I know for a fact works, you know, with pretty young people, I think there's a lot of people who are experiencing some dark shit right now.
I mean, it could well be that you talking about this could be taken against him. Are you, I mean, we should say it now, are you happy for this to go out?
Oh yeah, I'm ready. Totally. I think your initial question was talking about being a woman, and if people speaking to you, because you're like, the music industry still is not an equal place. It's just not. Because stuff like this happens to a variety of people, but I do think women are just like, there's another layer of doom that they're working against, I guess.
I wonder if that comes, I think this is true, because music's cowboy land.
Yeah.
And like, there's a lot of it to do with nighttime. There's booze. Yeah. There's drugs.
Yeah.
There's no rules.
And you can just wake up and call yourself a music manager or whatever. You can wake up and say that you're anything. No qualifications, no references. And I remember being 17, just like being offered contracts, and like I look back and like creepy guys that would like show up at all my gigs and be like, I'll manage you and drive you everywhere. And I just remember my parents a couple times intervening and going, don't know about this, like that's a bit weird. But you just want it so bad. You'll also just that's the other thing. Like, you want it so bad that you're almost beautifully disillusioned by, you just don't see like the potential for danger, because you want it so bad. Which is why, like, now as a 30-something writer, I feel so great about having young women in our studio. Like, that's the kind of where it's all led to. And
the full band, the band's made of women.
It is, yes. That's really important to me, because I've never in my 10-year touring history ever played with a woman, ever, or recording history. You've
never played with another woman
I've
in the
never
studio?
played an instrument with another woman in my life.
In the studio or on stage?
Never. Which is actually just never in my life, other than being at school and like being in the musical band, but like that because I went to an all-girls school.
That says something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I'm trying to work out, like, am I the problem? Do I just keep hiring men? But it's just like, even trying to put this band together for these videos that I did, these live performances I did, you know, it took me texting all my male musician friends going, right, I'm looking for some women or non-binary people to come and join my band and play live with me. Do you know anyone sick? And I don't want them to be like a woman and good. I would need them to be sick and coincidentally a woman. And doing it that way around is like, they're like, yeah, I got a couple names. Let me yeah, it was like a hard thing to do. Which is crazy.
We think we've come on a long way.
And we have like, look at like billing, like festival billing is like totally, well, I say it's totally different. It's still
there are still some festivals where you're like, I'm pretty sure those are all dudes.
Yeah, to be fair. And still in like, I mean, songwriters, 13% of women are songwriters. Producers is just like even, it's like 3%. And then you go into like engineers and mastering engineers and mixing engineers, and it's like your token 1 or 2 people, women. And so yeah, it was really important to me that I'm like, I need to surround myself with women, because making this record, I tried to do an all women cast and crew, but ended up, you know, the people that took my album cover and helped me kind of creatively art direct that are all guys. Every single person that played on that album are all guys. And I was trying so hard. It just shows like it has to be a conscious thought. Mm-hmm. And we're in 2024. Like,
yeah.
But
it must be in you. I mean, I speak with my partner who's a woman all the time, and she's like, yeah, I think I have sexism in me, because that's what I grew up with. And it's like a journey for everyone to kind of beat that out of yourself a little bit.
That's a really interesting point, actually.
That you can be a woman and still have
a layer of bias, because we grew up in that. Like, the 2000s were a mad space.
American Pie 2. Have you seen that in the last 15 years? Because it's wrong.
Has it aged badly?
So badly.
Has it?
One of the main things is trying to covertly film a woman getting undressed with a webcam.
Man.
It's like, come on.
Oh.
You know?
Yeah.
What message did that tell? You know, for as teenagers, we're like, oh yeah, we should. Yeah. That's what we should be doing. It's like, no, fuck off.
Yeah, that's so true.
Wrong.
It's so wrong. So we have come a long way. That
since then,
kids aren't watching films like that, but it's strange. Like, we're kind of that sort of generation that really recognises and rails against sexism and wants gender equality, but also has this, like, you're right, like this little quiet layer of bias.
Being a creative is you give yourself that job, and I find that fascinating. I think that's what this show's about, really, at the core of it, is people being like, no, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be serious about it, and I'm going to do the admin, I'm going to make sure it works, I'm going to try and pay my rent, and I'm going to be an adult about it. There's something really radical about that.
That's actually a really good point. Take your flippant dreams and desires, take them seriously.
Yeah.
Because no one else will, is the lesson, right? You think that as a kid, like, oh, someone's going to have my back and they'll just feed me on a plate. And actually, the older you get, and you're like, nah, the only person that's going to take you seriously is yourself.
Yeah.
Everyone else will try and flap you out the way.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
It's a good message.
Yeah. You're setting up a business of which you are also the product. It's a strange world, and it's all encompassing. You're right. Like, it's not just writing songs and going to sing them. Like, I remember being 17 and I was effectively running a business, because I was making all my own CDs. You'd print them all on yours. I remember one Christmas, all I wanted was a double CD drive so I could burn CDs. It's all. And I remember, like, my dad, they like retrofitted one into our computer. I got one, and he'd like wrapped up the existing computer with a bow. I was like, I got a double CD drive. There's the best thing. But like, you're enterprising, and you're doing that and being creative, and then having to go, no, I can do this, because the world's going, really? You're going to make it? Really?
Yeah.
You know.
And that's come now with the coffee shop, Nola, in Peckham, down the road, that you started in lockdown.
Yeah.
With this studio, High Water Studios.
Yeah.
And your solo career, and Oh Wonder, and you're doing interior design, basically. I follow you. I've been following you, making beautiful houses.
Yeah.
I mean, this place is beautifully laid out.
Thank you.
And you did that for your home.
Yeah.
Do you think that all comes from that kind of mindset of, I'm gonna do it?
Yeah, it's blind faith, and what we've realized as we've got older is that actually that sort of blind faith in yourself really, as you get older and the stakes get higher, or maybe you just mature. So the voice in your head going, does this make any sense for you to be doing this? You know, have you weighed up the risks of this? I think when you're a kid, you're like, oh, there's no risk. This is easy. That's fine. That's why you just drive yourself to Scotland and play a show, that you don't think about all the things that could go wrong on the way. You don't have a backup plan. You don't have a worst case scenario. You're just going. And the older I get, like, I can just see, like, we're starting to do things, and then there's this little voice going, but is this going to be successful, or are you going to? And I really now have to consciously go, fuck off. No.
Good to get that in there. Good to nip that in the bud.
Yeah, because I think that's what leads people to inaction. It's, well, fear. Yeah, of course it does. But I even see it with some mates, like they're still all these years later, like, oh, I just want to put my song out. And I'm like, your song is incredible. Just put it out. And they're like, oh, but it's not quite ready, and I haven't got the artwork ready. And I'm like, just put it out. It's an energy thing. Which I totally accept is also born from a place of privilege, where you can just be like, it's an energy thing, just go for it.
Some people find that really hard, don't they?
They really do. And it's because, we're not, it's self-esteem, I think, probably is what it comes down to. And believing that you're worthy and you deserve to put your art or whatever it is into the world. So we've made loads of spaces, but they're all, I find, like the correlation and the thread between them all, like the coffee shop, the studio, and then obviously shows and making music, they're all about community, they're all about people, they're all about hosting people, and making like a safe space, I guess.
I bet you put on some great dinner parties.
Yeah, we do. It's really important to us, like connection. Connecting with people, like they're all, and like being able to give people jobs, I think, is just one of the best. I didn't anticipate how good that feels. Like our barista at the coffee shop is this amazing guy called Cumin. He's from Korea, and we've just sponsored him again, his visa, for the second time now. So he's like, I always wanted to live in London and make coffee, and to be able to even just like give him that opportunity to come here for 5-6 years, and he's got a girlfriend and he's got a flat, and he's like, this is my dream job, and I'm like, this is so cool. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing.
And you built this place. You basically designed it.
Yeah, we designed it, and we didn't physically build it, but we decided to project manage it, which is something I don't recommend to anyone.
That's another job.
And we hired, like, we didn't hire studio builders because they're like insanely expensive. So we just got like regular builders. And like, I just remember Anthony went away for like a couple of weeks, so I was in charge of the build, and obviously it's like very complicated because everything has to be soundproof, all the floors are floating, all the ceilings are suspended, and I was trying to explain to these builders, I was like, the metal brackets between, because the walls are like this thick, I was like, they can't touch anything, and they're like, yeah, I got it, your cinema's gonna be fine. I was like, no, this isn't a cinema, this is a commercial recording studio, like, you need to follow the plan. They're like, yeah, it'll be fine, your gym's gonna be fine. I was like, no, it's not a gym. And I was just trying to manage like these people who were amazing, but it was very stressful. Can't recommend that. Absolutely terrible.
That's really funny. Did you get good at making good rounds of teas,
mate? But no, I was up at bloody Tool Station for like 6 hours a day for the best part of 6 months, because they'd be like, oh, forgot we need 150 of these bolts, and it's like, oh. You
made friends on the Surrey Canal Road.
I literally, that's all I went to.
I sometimes think, what do I want to do by my old age? What do I want to feel like? What are the emotions I want to feel? Forget like money and physical things. What do I want to feel? And I think connection. I think that's the biggest one for me.
Man, so true. It's everything. And actually, it's really funny, like, we were chatting with a mate the other day, and we were talking about music industry and money and earnings and whatever, as we always end up doing in a studio. Everyone's like, fuck the man. But and he was like, oh, just, you know, if I won 5 million euros or whatever, he said euros because he was like, I'd go and buy a house in Italy and just retire. And every bit of me and Anthony were like, wait, what? You wouldn't just turn up to the studio and make music every day? He was like, oh no, I just have a chill. And it was so, I'd never really, like, I know it sounds really silly, but like, I'd never really thought about why I'm doing this. And actually, if you gave me all the money in the world, I would still show up to the studio or show up to the coffee shop or show up to a gig and try and connect with people and do this job. Because it's like part of me. I don't know.
Being able to identify that thing that makes you feel good.
Oh,
that's awesome.
I'm so lucky.
You deserve to, I mean, like that feeling deserves to be fulfilled. You know, if you find that feeling, go for it.
But this is the point. Like, so many people must have that feeling, and then it's just some. It takes one little person to go. You're a bit deluded, aren't you?
Yeah. Surround ourselves with good people.
Mate.
That's the secret.
Crucial.
Gotta be.
Crucial. Yeah, totally.
Josephine, thanks so much for having us here and to talk about music and, you know, the serious, I mean, those are some serious stories in there. And the fun of it, like the pure joy of it. Found joy. Do you think you found joy?
Oh, mate, totally. Like, I could just turn up to the studio every day with my dog, write a song, go home, and I'm like, I'll get emotional if I think about it. This is actually all I ever wanted.
Hey, just to end with, I like asking people about their biggest work fuck-ups. Gaffes in the workplace. I feel like working on the till,
God.
You're pretty susceptible to giving the wrong change, or I don't know, being hungover on the till. I used to work at Waitrose on the till. And
did you? Mate, working in a supermarket on the till is actually my dream job.
I know.
In Waitrose, also bougie.
I mean, even in recent years, I used to work as a tour guide for foreign students coming over, as teenagers whose parents had bought them a trip, and it was down in Greenwich, and I used to show them around town, and I lost a couple of them on the tube one day.
Oh my God.
So it took a few hours, but we found them. It's okay.
Yeah,
I smashed a lot of glasses.
Oh, mate, yeah.
The thing is, I'd say, like, mistakes kind of make you who you are, aren't
they?
You learn from them. If you don't do it 3 or 4 or 5 times, it's not really a mistake. It's something that you've learned from.
It's a learning. My biggest fuck up, if I think about it, was actually in HMV in Oxford Street when I worked there. And actually, this wasn't even a fuck up. I'm going to own this. I slept with the assistant manager. And the manager, who really fancied the assistant manager, found out. She was like, oh, what? And she fired me. And then I was like, no, babes, you can't fire someone. You can't fire someone for that. And I appealed it. And then they gave me my job back. Yes. And I was like, no, I'm still going. You're an idiot.
Oh.
But just out of principle. But yeah, that was... Actually, it's not really a fuck up. I'm allowed to sleep with people.
No, of course you are. In these in-working environments, when you get someone who doesn't like you at work, that makes your life really hard.
It's savage. She hated me. She hated me, and I was really good at my job.
Josephine, 101 Part-Time Jobs.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you.
So there was that woman, Josephine Vander here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Her debut solo album, Find Joy, is out now. I highly recommend you go give it a listen. Cheers for being here. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you click subscribe wherever you're listening to this, on Spotify or Apple. All those follows really help us, and if you're able to leave a review, that's incredible as well. All that stuff means we can keep on bringing more excellent guests to us. So thank you.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.
That's the sound of your current hype level at the gas pump. But brace yourself for something fuel-nominal, because Unleaded 88 is about to take the hype to a whole new level. Unleaded 88 is cheaper, cleaner, and greener than regular unleaded. Plus, it's homegrown, making Unleaded 88 the clear choice at the pump and totally worth the hype. So pump it up with Unleaded 88, brought to you by Iowa Corn.
You slept through your alarm, missed the train, and your breakfast sandwich, cold. Sounds like you could use some luck.
I'm Victoria Cash, and Lucky Land is where people go every day to get lucky. At Lucky Land, you can play over 100 casino-style games for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Go to LuckyLandSlots.com and get lucky today. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This September 12th, SON Estrella Galicia are back in London with their micro festival at Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage. With live music, beer culture, street food and workshops, SON Estrella Galicia is the musical arm of the family-owned independent Estrella Galicia beer brand, which has been creating unforgettable music experiences since 2009. The September the 12th event will be headlined by Coach Party with support from the New Eves, as well as yet-to-be-announced DJ sets and local music selectors. There'll be a clothing repair workshop to customise your repaired clothes, a local food vendor serving 0 kilometre food with veggie and vegan options, a Soundcrafters interactive workshop, and a beer pouring workshop. Alongside the London event, there'll be a series of new micro-festivals in Madrid, A Coruña, Barcelona later in 2024, and Berlin and Granada in 2025, reflecting a truly global approach from SON Estrella Galicia. So if you're in London, September the 12th, swing by Hackney's Paper Dress Vintage for SON Estrella Galicia. Tickets are available now via Dice. As an independent music podcast, 101 Part-Time Jobs highly recommends DistroKid as the best solution to putting out your own music online. You can join 1 million other artists from all across the world putting out their own music on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else across the DSPs where people are listening to your music. My dream as a kid was to run a small little label, and now with DistroKid, getting music out online is the easiest it ever has been, making 100% of your own royalties while paying a small annual fee. And that fee's even smaller as a 101 Part-Time Jobs listener. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get 30% off your first year putting out your own music on DistroKid. Getting your own music out into the world has never been easier. Head to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod to get the best deal you can.